Hello, everyone, and welcome to this bonus day of Emerge Financial Health. I'm Marissa Walster, Senior Director and Business Strategy Lead at the Financial Health Network, and I'm thrilled to be your host. Earlier this month, we reflected on macro shifts facing financial institutions this past year, how the pandemic affected specific communities, and we gained insights on how leaders are driving financial health forward. You heard calls for systemic change, like standard national financial health measurement, evolving the mission of the IRS to include benefit distribution, reimagining how we fund our governments so they are no longer built on the backs of the most vulnerable. You were inspired by the acts of your peers and leaders. Our 2021 Financial Health Visionary Award recipient, Her Majesty Queen Maxima of the Netherlands, bringing financial health and inclusion to every corner of the globe. Daylight CEO Rob Curtis, bearing his personal story to help us see the importance of truly understanding the needs of customers. And you are here today because you know there is so much more to do. This past year has brought focus to the frailty of financial health in America. Millions are experiencing extreme financial hardship. In 2020, more than 2/3 of people were struggling to spend, save, borrow, and plan in ways that allow them to be resilient and seize opportunities over time. Feeding America estimated that more than 50 million people faced food insecurity last year, including 17 million children. Your customers, your employees, your communities, they need you. They are calling on you to be stewards of their financial health. They expect you to help. 2019 Financial Health Pulse data revealed that 80% of customers expected their financial institutions to help them improve their financial health. Yet only 14% thought their institutions delivered. We can do better. There's an opportunity here, an opportunity to build financial health for all, not just because it's the right thing to do. There's also a real business case to do so. If these same financial institutions can deliver, our data show that consumers are ready to reward them with greater loyalty and greater satisfaction. So today, we get tactical and we go deep into the tools that can help you realize this opportunity, and we map the FinHealth future of your business. So let's take a moment to talk about this new framework, the FinHealth Map. Earlier this year, the Financial Health Network published its FinHealth Map, a maturity assessment program, our tool to make the business strategy of financial health understandable, actionable, and sustainable for you. So while each of you will take a different path, as unique as your company and the people you serve, the pillars of an impactful strategy are the same. And the FinHealth Map outlines these common pillars. Using the map as our guide today, our sessions will dig into each of these 4 pillars: vision, infrastructure, performance, and solutions. Our first pillar requires that companies understand financial health and commit to improving it. Does your company have a definition of financial health? One that all employees know and understand their role in? Do you all see financial health as a driver of your business? This is vision, the first pillar. If you joined us on June 9th for the presentation of the Financial Health Visionary Award, you heard the embodiment of this in Her Majesty Queen Maxima of the Netherlands and PayPal CEO Dan Schulman. They have both made financial health a driving force in their work and organizations. But this often starts with just one employee knocking on a colleague's door and sharing their vision for the role their company can play in improving financial health. To achieve this vision, our next pillar requires that companies commit people and resources, leadership with processes, analytical tools, and employee incentive structures to inform decision-making for employees from the C-suite to frontline staff. This is infrastructure, the second pillar. Achieving financial health impact can require an internal transformation and investment, creating new teams and processes, investing in data and technology, rethinking incentive structures across the organization. But how do you know if you're on track? Our next pillar calls on companies to measure the financial health of customers and employees. Use this data to inform the products, programs, and benefits they offer. Set goals and hold themselves accountable to meeting them. This is performance, the third pillar. Data is at the core of business decisions today, determining the success of a marketing campaign, monitoring the profitability of a product, determining employee engagement. None of these things happen without setting a goal, measuring, monitoring, and iterating to achieve that goal. Financial health should be no different. So while these first three pillars, vision, infrastructure, performance, focus internally on an organization's processes that make impact efficient and effective, ultimately, financial health for all requires you to successfully deliver solutions to your customers, employees, and communities. This is our fourth pillar, solutions. This goes beyond offering financial literacy content or one token product. This takes addressing the full set of financial health needs, serving the needs of low-income families, Black and Brown people, the LGBTQ+ community, using techniques like behavioral economics to fortify your solutions and impact, taking a hard look at whether any of your products leave people worse off than they came to you. This is where financial health happens. Vision, infrastructure, performance, solutions. Each of you is likely in a different place on this journey, at a different level of maturity within each of these pillars, because there is no one right path. But we must be on this journey and continue to make progress. Your customers and employees of yesterday are calling for something different today. The past year made this clear. So while financial health for all will require a transformation in both mindset and strategy, we cannot go back. This is the transformation that your customers, employees, and communities need. But you do not need to go this road alone. While it may be hard to imagine, as we each sit alone at our kitchen table / home office, or in an office socially distanced from our coworkers, you are currently surrounded by hundreds of your peers. We are all on this journey together. You, me, and each of the people we have the chance to help. So let us use today as the first step among many on our new journey to address financial health for all. I'd like to send a special message of thank you to our sponsors. Their support in these critical conversations at this moment in time has been truly inspiring. Thank you to foundation sponsors, JP Morgan Chase and Prudential Financial. Gold sponsors, BlackRock and PayPal. Silver sponsors, Bank of America, Fifth Third Bank, MasterCard Center for Inclusive Growth, and MetLife Foundation. Bronze sponsors, Capital One, Members Development Company, the National Credit Union Foundation, and Opportune. We sincerely appreciate your support. So by now, I expect you have all participated in numerous events by video. So these housekeeping tips should be familiar. We have included a Q&A and polling tool on the right of this page, where we encourage you to share your thoughts and ask questions throughout the day. Please pose questions to our panelists and share your own thoughts and insights. Remember, you are not alone in this. Our team is on and participating, including the Financial Health Network's Mark Feldman, who leads our consulting practice. He will be online to point you to additional resources and address questions about how you can apply the tactics you hear about today at your organizations. We will do our best to address as many questions as possible during each session, but please note we are always available, so do not hesitate to reach out during and after the sessions. If you scroll near the bottom of this page, you'll find resources related to the topics we'll be covering during today's sessions. If you have any technical questions or issues throughout the day, please click on the chat bubble at the bottom right of your screen. Closed captioning is available. Please see the link below the streaming window to access this feature. Now, before we get started, let's get to know each other a little better. Please respond to our quick poll on the right-hand side of the chat box. Well, it looks like we have a mix of industries today and perspectives represented. Please don't hesitate to add your commentary in the chat box and throughout our sessions. Without further ado, we bring you our first session, Vision. Please join me in welcoming Kristen Holt, President and CEO of GreenPath Financial Wellness, for a fireside chat with Reba Dominski, U.S. Bank's Chief Social Responsibility Officer and Foundation President, to discuss how U.S. Bank is building its vision for financial health.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Kristen Holt, and I am the CEO of GreenPath Financial Wellness, and I'm your moderator today for this session. GreenPath is a national nonprofit financial counseling and coaching organization, and we're working towards our vision of remixing the American dream so it works for everyone. As everybody knows, a company's vision can operate as a real North Star for its employees, and it's a signal to the community of their dedication to their customers, their employees, and the community. A strong, clear vision rallies employees, focuses companies' resources, and promotes organizational efficiency. When we set our vision at GreenPath, it helped us transition from a focus primarily on debt reduction to a broader and more compelling why, helping all people reach their dreams through financial health. Throughout this session, we'll be exploring how U.S. Bank is building its vision for financial health. So I'd like to start by introducing Reba Dominski. Reba joined U.S. Bank in June of 2015 as the president of the U.S. Bank Foundation and SVP of Corporate Social Responsibility. In 2017, she was promoted to Chief Social Responsibility Officer, and in 2019 to EVP, Chief Social Responsibility Officer. Reba leads U.S. Bank's community efforts to maximize social, environmental, employee, and business impact. She leads the U.S. Bank Foundation, volunteerism, environmental sustainability, community affairs, and financial education strategy. She also leads the bank's CRA, Community Reinvestment Act, activities focused on lending, serving, and investing in low to moderate income communities. So as we delve into this session on vision, Reba and I will be discussing the tactical efforts that have gone into building and expanding understanding of financial health at U.S. Bank. What do leaders and employees need to do to keep momentum going? And we really welcome any questions or comments that you might have in the chat. We're going to try to address as many of those as we can at the end of the session. So Reba, I'm so happy to be able to talk with you. Let's start with having you share U.S. Bank's financial health vision and how it's evolved over time.
I'm happy to do that. Thank you so much, Kristen. And I have to say, your vision statement about remixing the American dream so that it works for everyone, I hope I got that right, is so incredibly inspiring. I might steal it and apply it at U.S. Bank.
Please do, because it takes all of us to do this. We can't do it alone.
That's exactly right, which is why I'm so grateful for your leadership in this space. And I'm so excited to be a part of this discussion. U.S. Bank has been a member of the Financial Health Network for years, and we've been collaborating with FHN for about 15 years. FHN CEO Jennifer Tescher is a member of our Community Advisory Committee. We have this group of 16 community leaders from across the country who help shape and advise us on our social impact strategies. So I'm just a huge fan of FHN. I'm a huge fan of Jennifer and the team. And I'm a really big fan of the MAP framework that I know is going to be the focus of much of our conversation. You already talked about the portfolio of activity that I lead at leading corporate social responsibility at U.S. Bank. There's a lot of different pieces to the puzzle of the work that I do. And financial education became a part of my portfolio a few years ago. And I started as every good leader does, by hiring the right person to lead our financial education strategy. Her name is Corey Yamada. And when Corey came on board, she helped me see that we needed to build a roadmap to move from financial education to financial health. And I want to tell you where we started, and I don't think it will surprise anybody who works in corporate America, and it definitely won't surprise anybody who's in financial services. We started, as we always do, with data and insights. And I want to share just a couple of the data points that we shared with our senior leaders, and these should sound familiar to everyone who's listening in. The first is a stat on macroeconomic data. 40% of Americans, as we all know, cannot afford a $400 rainy day expense. If you look at customer insights, we learned that 58% of customers prefer receiving advice through a bank website or a mobile app. We were delivering a lot of in-person financial literacy training in branches, and almost 60% of people were saying that's not how we want to get our training, our information today. And of course, we looked at employee insights. And one of the most interesting and stunning stats about employees in America is that 45% of our employees in this country live paycheck to paycheck. So when we shared that data with our senior leaders and our CEO, they all had a very similar reaction. They said, we're a bank and we can do something about that. So what should we do? And where do we start? So we started with an inventory of our current efforts. We looked at everything we were doing across the enterprise related to financial health, and it was a lot. Through that inventory, we identified gaps. Where are the gaps? What are we not doing that we should be that will provide value to our employees, to our customers, to our key stakeholders? We then built a roadmap. And one of the most important things we did, Kristen, with that roadmap is we built it into US Bank's strategic plan, which means that we reviewed that roadmap with our board of directors. And as many know, nothing builds forward progress and accountability like board level engagement. One of the first things we did on our roadmap was started pulling all of our content together so that customers, employees, stakeholders could access it. We created this holistic set of financial education offerings through a site that we call Financial IQ. It launched in 2018 and is now offered in English and in Spanish. And then we followed our roadmap. We accelerated our work around all of our key stakeholders. And I'll stop there because I know we're going to talk more about our specific plans with those key stakeholders.
Yes, that actually is my next question. So how have you rallied employees and stakeholders across the organization around this vision?
Yeah, it's really important to make sure that our employees are empowered with this vision and, more importantly, with the knowledge, the skills, and the behaviors that would enhance their own well-being and also better prepare them to serve our customers. That was one of our key insights, is in order for bankers to do what they do, they have to be knowledgeable and they have to be secure in terms of their own financial health. So some of our strategic priorities, one of our most important strategic priorities was to launch an employee wellness program. So we partnered with FHN, of course, to survey our employees on their financial health, and we used a pulse map to do that. And through that survey, we learned that our employees largely mirror the financial health of the typical American population, including some of those stats that I cited earlier. We found that many of our employee bankers don't feel like they themselves are financially healthy. In fact, we found that frontline bankers are twice as likely to report that they do not have emergency savings and they have higher spending than their income. So we used all of this rich data to pilot a financial wellness program with our employees in consumer banking. We picked where our frontline bankers reside and we said, let's test this, let's pilot it, let's try it with them. We highlighted both existing and new resources, and most importantly, we really encouraged our employees to take action, including taking a very simple health assessment to understand where their needs and gaps were, starting a rainy day fund, or participating in a webinar. We offered small steps to say, just start here, try this. We provided badges and incentives. Everybody knows that the way to incent anybody to do anything in this digital world we live in is through badges and incentives, and it made it fun for employees. We focused on sharing knowledge and encouraging our employees to develop new routines. It's really important to us. Not just that you take the fun test or you do the fun webinar, but that you incorporate what you've learned into your routine. And importantly, we wanted to make sure that our bankers were sharing the knowledge that they had and the best practices and routines that they developed with their customers. We had really strong positive feedback. We learned a lot from that pilot, and we rolled out a version of this program to all of our employees earlier this year, and we're getting great engagement from those employees. One specific example I'll give you that I mentioned earlier is this Rainy Day Savings Fund. We rolled out a Rainy Day Savings Employee Challenge. It's a 6-week virtual challenge to help employees develop beliefs and habits to start setting aside emergency funds. So through this pilot with employees and the rollout of the program, we're testing, we're learning, and we're understanding how to optimally engage our employees in the vision and the work, but also to support them with the right tools and knowledge and resources. And the beautiful thing about that is we're creating 70,000 plus advocates for our work that will talk to their customers, that will talk to their communities about our vision for financial health at US Bank.
That's awesome. And it's just so great for them to talk about it from their personal experience. Like, it just makes it so much more relatable. Like, I did this and you can do it too. That's fantastic. I could talk to you about that forever, and I have a bunch of questions if we don't get other questions. So, so I'd love to talk more. What about leaders? So what role do the leaders in the organization need to play in building this financial health vision for the organization and with the organization?
Yeah, you know, Kristen, there's different cultures in organizations. So I would encourage everybody to think about what is their organizational culture, and then how do you make what you're trying to do work within your organizational culture. When I came to US Bank and when financial health became a priority, we are a pretty tops-down organization. And so we really started with this vision and the roadmap at the top. As I mentioned, we shared it with our board of directors, so the very top of the house, and we integrated it into our strategic plan, and we partnered with every member of our managing committee, every business line, so that they could think about, what does this mean to my business line? What does this mean in terms of the products and the services and the experiences that I'm offering? So we started at the top, but then we really try to keep this steady drumbeat of stories, knowledge, and resources building kind of across the organization. A consistent drumbeat and messages from leaders like Tim Welsh, who is our head of consumer banking, our CEO, Andy Cesare, who just volunteered teaching kids on LA's South Side about home mortgages. You know, creating kind of both data and story to inspire our employees to kind of stay engaged and get engaged. So storytelling really helps us maintain the momentum. It helps us translate the importance of this work to the core business of banking. And then all the individuals on the front lines, including our business resource groups, help us innovate this program, help us learn from their experiences, and then really help us extend it with passion to all of the customers and communities and stakeholder groups that they serve.
That's awesome. It sounds like you've really created a sense of ownership and accountability within the organization and throughout. That's great.
That's right.
So what advice do you have for someone who wants to take their organization on this financial health vision and creating this financial health vision? What should they do to engage their leadership team or their employee base in building the strategy? What do you think?
Yeah, I would again emphasize starting with data and insights. You know, in the work that we do, it's so important to ground everyone in kind of the state of the state, what we're hearing from key stakeholders. That's a really inspiring way to bring together both the numbers and the story to convince people that something different needs to happen. You have to build that business case. I really would encourage everyone to deploy the financial pulse map, i.e. the financial health assessment, as a really simple, one quick, turnkey way to really make sure that you're understanding your audience. Second, we do this across the bank, and it applies here as well. Use an agile approach. You know, build it fast. Create your skateboard. Fail a lot. Learn quickly, and then improve within each iteration. We all know that if we didn't use an agile approach, we would start talking about it in 2021, and in 2025, we would have the product that was perfect that would launch, and it would no longer be relevant to any of our key stakeholders. So take an agile approach, and don't be afraid to fail and learn from that experience. break down the silos, really encourage this cross-functional approach to this opportunity around financial health. Treat financial health like a measurable business outcome, just like revenue, just like loan growth. Financial health is that important. So we have a dedicated team member, for example, in marketing. We've got a dedicated team member in customer experience and data science and digital and retail who all work with my team to bring this strategy to life. You need a strong cross-functional team of experts. And then finally, and this is where, again, FHN and others can be so helpful, partner with nonprofit organizations and with experts to learn, to share ideas, and to gain expertise. They are our most valuable partners in the work that we do.
Awesome. Yeah, and I just want to add to what you're saying. You're doing so much, and it's fantastic. And obviously, you guys are a big organization, which brings its complexities. At the same time, it brings a lot of resources. And so I just want to encourage everybody on here, if you're big or you're small, this is really possible to do because it takes all of us to be part of making this vision come to life. And so even if you don't have all the resources to buy the things or dedicate the roles, I think you can create that sense of ownership with your team to really, own making an impact. So we have some audience questions, so let's move into those. And this is actually very aligned with the question I was going to ask, so perfect. So the question is, what are some of the key metrics that U.S. Bank is using to understand the impact and outcomes of the financial wellness initiative? And I was curious specifically for your employee base too, which was not part of that question, but I'll shove mine in there too.
Yeah, so interesting and fascinating question. I'm going to be honest and tell you where we are in our journey, and this is definitely on our roadmap. Today, we measure outputs. How many people attended the seminar? How many people logged on to Financial IQ? How much time did they spend on the page? What we need to partner with FHN and others to do, and we're doing that, is move from measuring outputs to measuring outcomes. And in banking, that is tricky because when you want to look at someone's savings and you want to understand, did they save more as a result of whatever you've offered them, there are privacy and data issues that you have to manage through. So I would say today we have a solid set of outputs. We are really working to get to outcomes. And our employee population, Kristen, to answer your question, is one of the places we're starting because our employees can opt in to sharing that information with us, which is something we can also do with our customers over time. So we're starting with our employee base, and right now the focus is really, let's stop measuring all of those outputs and things that don't really tell us, are we changing behaviors? Because ultimately that's what we want to get to, but we are still early in that journey.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think your employees is a great opportunity too, where they can share their success with each other. So again, if I see someone who's in the same job as me and they're like, I managed to get my $400 savings account built up and here's how I did it, like it gives them great opportunities to learn.
You got it.
Okay, I'm not seeing other audience questions yet. So let me go to some of mine. Oh, wait, no, there's one more. Here we go. Okay. So when you started your journey, where did the strongest skepticism about the investment in financial health come from? And it sounds like you've overcome some of that, but would love to hear about the hurdles or maybe just other learnings that you've had. Like if you could say like, don't do this didn't work.
Yeah, this is an interesting question. I would say some of the biggest skepticism was truly from our finance department when they looked at some of the numbers that we first put out there for necessary investments. But I think this comes back to, Kristen, something that you said, which is this work actually doesn't have to be that expensive. In that agile mode, you can try, you can pilot, you can test things. And that's how we've successfully overcome some of the naysayers, is to say, okay, we want $10 billion. You start with a big number and they go, no. And then you go, okay, we can do it for $1 million, but we'll try it in this small way. We'll learn from it. And then we'll prove out our theory that this is going to benefit the bank and our customers. And so collecting that feedback is really, really important to kind of prove out the theory. So I would say, we've been pretty scrappy. And Corey, who I mentioned, is a part of this. The other thing I would say is, I don't have the biggest budget at the bank. I know it's shocking. Corporate social responsibility does not have the biggest budget at the bank. The business lines, the revenue generators, have some of the biggest budget dollars. So Tim Welsh, who I mentioned, is our head of consumer, he and Corey and I are attached at the hip, and he is the biggest advocate and believer for this vision and this strategy. And what that means is when we can't find the dollars ourselves, Tim will also sometimes come with dollars in hand to say, I believe in this and I can afford to pay for it. So be creative about the sources of revenue to fund the initiatives that you're looking for. Partnerships inside the bank and outside the bank have been critical to help us raise the necessary dollars to invest really meaningfully in this vision.
That's fantastic. Those are all really great ideas. Thank you so much for sharing today, Reba. I could talk to you forever, and I'm going to when we get done here. But I just really appreciate what you and U.S. Bank are doing to make an impact in improving financial health in our country. You're going to help us achieve our BHAG. So I just think that's fantastic, and it's been a pleasure just learning from you, and I hope everybody has enjoyed the session.
Thank you so much, Kristen, and thank you for your leadership at GreenPath. It's really, really inspiring, and we are going to find ways to work together. So thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, Reba.
Thank you, Kristen and Reba, for that inspiring session. The vision of leaders like Reba, Kristen, and their colleagues is so important to advancing financial health. There's so many great insights that they spoke about, starting with data and insights, getting leadership on board, engaging employees from across the organization, supporting their financial health, and giving them a sense of ownership so they can help innovate, lead, and extend financial health impact. After hearing that session, I'm curious to know, where is your company in building its financial health strategy? Please take a moment to respond to the poll question on your right. So it looks like many of you are beginning to make progress at your company. So how do you build toward a vision? You need people to drive strategy, technology, processes, incentive structures to enable decision-making. This is infrastructure, and it's critical to support the type of vision building we just heard is underway at U.S. Bank, and that so many of you are embarking on. In our next session, we dig into the second pillar of the FinHealth map, infrastructure. In what ways should financial institutions commit people and resources? Do you need a vice president of financial health? Will you need to retrain employees or deploy a new CRM system? In our infrastructure session, we will hear from companies navigating these questions and taking different approaches to setting their organizations up for financial health impact. Michael Sear, Regions Bank Head of Customer Segment Strategy, will moderate this discussion, with Shashir Singhania, Chief Lending Officer at Barrow Bank, Tracy Sarzi-Fors, the Vice President of Marketing and Business Development at Wright Pat Credit Union, and Eddie Queen, Head of Financial Health and Engagement Platform at Wells Fargo. We'll hear from them in just a moment.
Imagine coming to work and focusing on what you need to get your job done without distraction, because you have the financial security that can make for a better life at home and peace of mind at the office. That's a goal everyone dreams of, but not one that everyone believes they can achieve. Maybe you're worried about making ends meet today, or you're planning for the future and could use some help figuring things out. Now's the time to take advantage of financial wellness from Prudential, a connected set of web-based and in-person experiences created from the ground up. With it, you can learn to confidently address day-to-day money matters and help achieve your most important life goals, like college savings or retirement, while protecting your assets and your loved ones from key risks. Using the Wellness Toolkit is simple. Start with a quick assessment of your financial health to understand where you are and what actions you need to take to help get you where you want to be. Based on your life goals, we bring you the Financial Wellness Center, a personalized experience including videos, articles, and tools to help you make confident choices. The interactive content is constantly refreshed and includes tools and guides to retirement, estate planning, budgeting, and other topics to help you chart your future needs and manage your day-to-day. Each online experience takes only minutes to read, watch, or complete. Everything can be saved to reference later and can be shared with loved ones so that you can work together to help achieve family financial goals. You'll also be able to tap into webinars and attend live seminars to understand new ways to make the most of your benefits and achieve what you want from life. And you can even talk with a professional to get the answers you need when you need them. As you learn more about your financial choices, decisions become clearer and can be carried out with more confidence. No matter if you need to get back on track or want to explore new possibilities, you can enjoy what Prudential calls the wellness effect, being able to set aside financial concerns that hold you back so you can focus on moving forward with the rest of your life.
My name is Michael Sear, and I am so excited to be your moderator for this session on financial health infrastructure. I can't believe they put me in charge. So for today's panel, we have a really good, diverse group of companies with unique approaches to financial health, and I think there'll be something interesting and relevant for everyone. So we'll kick it off with some quick introductions. Again, my name is Michael Sear. I'm with Regions Bank, $150 billion consumer bank headquartered in Birmingham, Alabama. We have 1,300 branches in 15 states, but mostly concentrated in the Deep South. Now for our panelists, we'll start with Tracy.
Hi, my name is Tracy Sarzi-Fors, and I'm with Rate Pac Credit Union. We are located in Beaver Creek, Ohio, which is the Dayton area, and our asset size is about $6.5 billion.
And Shashir.
Thank you, Michael, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shishir Singhania, and I'm the Chief Lending Officer for Varus Bank. We are a digital bank based out of San Francisco, and what that means is we don't have any branches, and we deliver our products to our customers through our app. Our bank is powered by a very nimble and cloud-based technology stack. And in August 2020, Varus became the first fintech in the country to be given a national banking charter by a regulator, the OCC.
Excellent. And last, Eddie.
Hey, thank you, Michael, and hi, everyone. So Eddie Queen, I head up financial health engagement platform for Wells Fargo. So hopefully you all know the bank.
Little community bank. All right, well, let's start off with each of you sharing a little bit about how your company is organized around financial health. Like, why did you choose that structure? How does that work for you? Maybe what some of the challenges are related to that. Why don't we go in reverse order? We'll start with Eddie.
Sure. Alrighty, so today, per my title, right, we do have a centralized group focused on financial health. And think of it as our mandate is to develop and maintain engaging experiences that are data-driven and that help customers improve their financial health, right, through guidance, through personal guidance. So you can think of it as almost kind of a layer above products and cutting across channels, right, mobile, digital, branch, call center. And think of this as like, think about the jobs to be done, the stuff that people are actually trying to get done when they manage their finances, you know, whether it's managing their spend or building an emergency fund or paying down debt. So those are the experiences that we are focusing on, starting to invest, buying a home, retiring, etc. Now, how do we get here? Because this is reasonably new to Wells Fargo. We had tried historically a more decentralized model. And I think not very surprisingly, to a large organization like ours, we ended up with siloed solutions, right? That were either very channel specific or very product specific. And we were lacking a cohesive strategy with a clear set of priorities, with a consistent approach. And that's what brought us here. That's what kind of led the bank to decide to create a central team. And we've been doing that for about a year and a half now. So it's recent. It's not that, that old yet. We also have a head of financial health in our philanthropy arm, which is a whole different ballgame, right? In our foundation and how we engage our communities and how we help them with financial health. So there are needs from a legal standpoint to keep something separate. So that's why we have that as well. Now, it would be naive to think that by centralizing financial health, that everything related to financial health happens centrally. That's not the case, right? We're a bank and we help people every day. So that's the reality is there are things that smell, feel, and taste like financial health that are also being done by the digital team, by the product teams, and we collaborate with them. So I think just kind of sum it up in terms of the pros and cons, what this current structure gives us is that focus that we were lacking historically, that consistency and strategy, approach, and priorities. And we are starting to kind of harvest some of the benefits of that. The challenge is that you also have to continue to influence through, especially on financial product design, right? We don't have authority over that. That's still with the lines of business, with product groups. So when it comes to designing products, not just the guidance layer, but products that actually, have embedded in them the principles around financial health, that's still relying on an influence and collaboration. It's not something that can be centralized. So hopefully that helps.
No, that's great. Excellent. Shashir, we'll go to you.
Thank you, Michael. So I think we are a little bit different. We don't have a unique set of team focused on financial health. Financial health is just in our DNA, and it's the primary motivators for most people who work at Varus, starting from a CEO down. So, if you think of Varus, our mission, our stated mission is to advance financial inclusion and opportunity for all customers, right? And this mission is integrated into everything we do. It is in our product development process. It's in how we service our customers. It's in how we build our brand creatives and how we build out our experience design. It's in how we price our products, everything, right? As we do that, we very closely also track customer feedback from all different types of customers. And most of our customers are very enthusiastic about Varus. They tell us what they feel. They tell us the pain points that they're feeling. And this is a very strong voice as we are building new experiences and building new products, right? It was interesting. There's a customer who had uploaded a rap video about Varus last month, and it's on our Instagram page. You should check it out. But we, in addition to financial health, we are also investing in what we call our impact platform, where we have our Varus investor and our impact advisor, Russell Westbrook, helping us do that as we kind of grow and scale from here.
All right. And then Tracy.
Thank you, Michael. So I think ours has been sort of an evolution. We've been doing this since about 2015, 2016. And it started with, let's just do the health score and do a gap analysis. And from there, we'll put a plan together and we'll have this small committee. From there, it morphed into, it's part of the strategic plan. From there, it morphed into our culture book and awareness campaigns and so forth. So how I see it broke down here at our credit union, it's about more, there's a people portion, a planning portion, products and services, and then data. So a lot of it comes through having something that we can all talk about and focus on. So we have a 3-year marketing plan and map, and it doesn't just include what marketing wants to do or what financial education, I actually call it financial learning, what they want to do or what community development wants to do. It's very comprehensive, and we all have what I'd like to say some skin in the game. But I think what's most important when you look at these steering committees and these projects is that you have to get the buy-in, and you also have to break down those silos. And I think Eddie had mentioned that. The data helps with that. And we actually are working on a financial wellness dashboard right now. And all of the data that we have is told just a wonderful story. And so when you have that, you have the ability to influence others in the organization. So we don't have someone with the title. Basically, we've integrated it and woven it into the DNA of the credit union, and we have conversations. Do you have a champion, which would probably be me, myself, and then several other folks on my team, and now also in learning and development, which is huge. So, but data will lead you down a good path to help people understand what can be done and where we're at.
Yeah. And I'll share just a little bit about my experience at Regions. We have also been doing financial health probably since about 2015. We started off with just email surveys. That was our initial foray. And like Tracy said, looking at customer responses, seeing how people engaged with that survey and where some of the gaps were. Then we integrated it into our financial education content. So it was a way to help drive people to appropriate financial education content instead of just here's a library. And then last year, as part of a rebranding of our account recommendation tool and our guided discovery goal setting tool, I was involved in that process and suggested we layer in the financial health questions. And so we have felt like our strategic competitive advantage is our interactions with our bankers. So by putting all these tools together into a branded experience that we call Greenprint, and we talk about that externally, come in and get a Greenprint, whether you're opening a new account, whether you're an existing customer, and that financial health score now is part of every customer interaction. So some of the things I'm hearing folks talk about from a product standpoint and a community development standpoint, I think those are on the roadmap, but right now the structure for us is very much an associate customer engagement tool is how we're using the financial health score and orienting around financial health. So I wanted to follow up on the first question just with some, get some information from you all about like where would you say you've seen the greatest impact on the organization? Like what's been the biggest change in the way y'all operate? And so maybe to start this one with Shashir.
Sure. I think, Michael, again, it's just, it's on the same lines. The way we think of financial inclusion and health at Varus, it's just a part of our DNA. So every product and everything that we are building has that from the onset, right? And for us, I'll give you an example. So we're building a product which is around delivering a secured card for our consumers. And what we heard our consumers say that the current secured cards that are out there need a customer to put in a deposit before they can get access to the card. And that's difficult. That's difficult for a large set of customers who don't have $500 or $1,000 to lock away in a card, right? But they still value a secured card because that's the way that they can start building a credit history and get access to more financial products, over time. So our team went back and designed a secured card where a customer does not need to put the deposit in upfront, or where the amount of deposit can vary based on the needs of a customer and the spending patterns that they have. So it's all about ensuring we build products from the ground up, trying to address the customer problem and not being anchored to how they are built right now. So that way the products are built in a way that's very inclusive, and to the point of how do we manage it, because it's in our DNA, and I can't tell you how many times. It can be in our executive team meetings, or it can be working with our product managers or designers or analysts when we are building out products or thinking about how it would work. Our associates call out and ask the question, does this product work for all? Is this a product that we are thinking of all of our customers, not just a subset of our customers as you're building it? So this is just a DNA that we are building into Varus as we are building Varus and scaling up. And it's been great to see that come to fruition as we build and launch products in the market.
Yeah, it's it's a fascinating perspective coming from a startup where it's being built in to the foundation of everything, not so much a transformation. So Tracy, do you have any thoughts or anything you want to add on impact or change to operations?
Yeah, so some of it's just changed the thought, right? I mean, our mission is to help people through life. And so we have always sort of had that way of thinking, but then when the term financial health and wellness came aboard and now financial well-being, it's like, okay, yeah, that's what we're doing. And so I think two big evolutions that have happened is it's moved from, what Tracy's working on to people being able to articulate it now, because we actually call it financial flexibility and freedom, and we have the pillars underneath it, and they can articulate that. The other thing that I think has been interesting for us is we put personas together based on the financial health and wellness, and we have 5 of them, and we took that information and we put it over the data that we have. And that has given us so much information. It's given us an opportunity to really put strategy together around each of these groups of members, which is now morphing into developing a more robust training component. And then lastly, I would just say that the conversation that's been taking place, and I think we have a good handle on it now, is do you lead with service excellence and that leads to financial well-being, or do you start with financial well-being and service excellence is just part of the process? It's probably a combination of the two is what we've come to the conclusion. But in essence, if we can develop problem solvers around financial flexibility and freedom, that service excellence is going to go an awful long way. So that's where I would say right now the areas of impact that we've seen.
That's great. I've always been impressed with your work at Right Pat, with the depth that you bring, your associates bring when they interact, the stories you've told about talking to members. I envy that a little bit, right? That you can really get in deep with some of the stuff that you do and make a big impact quickly. So. Now, on the other extreme, we have Eddie with that little bitty community bank, Wells Fargo. So, and you're in a titled role around financial health. So, I'm curious, like even just having your position, like what's been the impact on the organization, and how do you think that changes the way things operate?
I think the first thing is a little related to what Tracy was just saying. To be honest, and for us, this embracing this idea of what are the jobs to be done what are the things that people are really struggling with and they need help? Because a lot of this is about how we make it tangible for people and for the leaders, right? Because there was a lot of conversation in the past about financial health, but I think the business probably failed to define clearly what can we do to help and what's the best way to do it. And once you start defining the problem very clearly for people, and these are the things that people are struggling with, and here's how we can do to help, that makes a huge difference. And what you see is people fall in line and everybody kind of supportive of let's go, let's do it. So I feel like shaping this thing is super important because it can very easily become amorphous and then people lose interest. So you have to define it clearly and you have to have a customer and a business centric view. You have to kind of have the business case to support it and you have to demonstrate that you can kind of add value to customers. So on the customer side, and I think in this conference here, JD Power is going to share some stuff, but I think we know any time that we demonstrate to people that we care about their financial health and well-being, you will see a result in NPS, in loyalty, however you measure it, right? So that's a no-brainer. The harder part that we're starting to spend more time on is can you demonstrate that you are actually helping move the needle to the customer? Now, true kind of experimentation and incrementality kind of measurement to see can we really make a difference? And even Common Sense Lab, I think from a couple of years ago in their report, they say that 50% of their experiments, which are super well designed, don't yield any results, right, for customers. So I think that's the challenge that we have as an industry is like, can we actually help people and demonstrate that? But on the business side, I feel like the defining things clearly and having a plan and demonstrating how you can actually bring this vision to life is the thing that makes the biggest difference. Yeah,
I like that if you just talk about it, it can be amorphous and just this sort of nebulous thing out there. You know, I'll share, you know, a bit about my experience, and then if we have some questions from the audience, I think we have about 5 minutes left. But you know what, I think as this has been more layered into everything we do, you see other parts of the bank, I don't want to say jump on the train, but realize the value in it. So having the answers to the financial health questions, well, how does marketing use that data to better target messaging, right? How is that going to get integrated into digital banking or product development, or even for a banker, if someone answers a question that they pay some of their bills on time, well, what's it going to take to move you to most and then all of your bills on time? And that's where you get into a deeper dive and a better conversation with people. And I think the bankers really embrace that rather than, you know,
that's
hey,
really
did you
the
know
job
you
to
can
be
make
done. That's really why that's what we need to help people to do, right? That's the real thing.
So it's been, you know, for me, I've enjoyed going on this journey and seeing like how it gets integrated into what we do. And Greenprint was a huge leap forward, and I had no idea that was coming. I've always shared that, you know, I threw a lot of spaghetti at the wall until I saw something that stuck. So we were lucky. But do we have any questions? Oh, sorry, Tracy.
Well, you said journey, and I was going to mention that to everybody that's listening. This is a journey. It's not going to happen overnight, and you're going to learn a lot along the way. It's just like when they talk about mapping. If you're using a map, typically it means it's going to take a while for you to get to your destination. So just plan on that at the very beginning. It is not a snap of the finger.
Yeah, I think just one other thing I would love to add. I think, yes, it's a journey, and yes, you know, but I feel like there's so much out there that we can do to help our customers on this journey. And and I think we need to really pick the things that will have a huge impact versus picking things on the margin that will help our customer. And that is true for our entire industry. There's so much we can do, and it is great to see, you know, so many different companies, so many different types of companies trying to make an impact over here.
So we do have a question that came in. That is, have any of you had to invest in technology or data capabilities? And I'll share just a quick, my experience. Greenprint answers a lot of questions and gets a lot of data, and there's a lot of forms and processes to fill out to get data from that into the data lake where people can access it and retrieve it and use it. That's not something that I was familiar for, so you know, that I would say investing in capabilities, but just getting resources aligned to, okay, now that we've got all this information, we need to be able to start using it and make sure that we have access to it.
Yeah, I think that's, go ahead, Tracy.
I was just going to say, for us, it's more resources. It's more the people. How can we get the resources to use what it is that we currently have? The health score, I'm not sure if I would consider that new technology, though it's a great tool. And we have done some pilots with some fintechs out there. I think that experiment is very good too. And then I'll just pass that out to Shashir.
Yeah, thank you. I think the thing I would say is it's important to have your technology stack built in a way that's nimble and efficient, because that allows you, because as you learn more about the customers, you understand where the need is. It allows you to build fast and build in a way that's flexible, because it's a very fast evolving area.
Yeah, data and technology is like 85% of our time every day. And we actually happen to roll up to a group that's called Consumer Data and Engagement Platforms. So that's not by chance. To Tracy's point, it's a lot about truly knowing your customers through data and using that to help them with personalized guidance.
All right. Well, we are we're coming up on the end, so I'll ask any final thoughts, final comments. All right. Well, I'm getting the time to wrap signal, so I want to thank our awesome panelists. I hope that you enjoyed this as much as I did, and enjoy the rest of your time here at Emerge. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
Thank you, Michael, Shashir, Tracy, and Eddie. As we heard, this is a journey, and there's no one right way to advance financial health. Each company comes to their financial health strategy with unique circumstances that influences how it defines success, informs its path to reaching it. So there's no one singular road to take. Rather, opportunities for continuous improvement in ways that meet the unique needs of your customers, employees, communities, and your business. So this begs the question, how do you know what improvements to make? Well, the answer is data. You need data to understand the problem. Data to uncover how your products and programs are impacting outcomes. You would not attempt to grow your business without data. So let's treat financial health in the same way, with the same rigor that we treat growth and profitability, grounded in data, informed by insights, and holding ourselves accountable to clear goals. This is the third pillar of the FinHealth map, performance. Performance starts with data, through data collection, which we call measurement. Measuring needs and measuring the impact of strategy so that we can continuously improve financial health for all. So I'd love to hear, what is the biggest challenge your company faces in measuring financial health? Let me know by answering the poll question on your right. Turning data into insights, turning data into strategy. Well, in our upcoming session, we will hear from companies currently on this journey. How do they collect data? Use it to advance their impact? How do they measure the performance of their financial health initiatives? Moderating this next session is my colleague, John Thompson, president of Attune. Attune is a revolutionary insights platform that is helping companies use data to optimize for financial health. He will moderate this discussion with Laura McKenzie, Senior Vice President of Financial Inclusion at MasterCard, Brunson, founding member of Per Capita Group, and Crystal Anderson, Vice President of Financial Services at H&R Block. Stay tuned and we'll find out what tools and tactics they are using to collect data and turn it into action and impact. We'll hear from them in just a few moments.
Hello, my name is John Thompson. Thank you for joining this afternoon. I'd also like to thank our panelists, Brunson, Laura McKenzie, and Crystal Anderson. Brunson is the founding partner at Per Capita, an emerging financial wellness solution. Laura is the Senior Vice President of Global Consumer Product and Financial Inclusion at MasterCard, responsible for delivering on MasterCard's important and substantial financial inclusion commitments globally. And Crystal is the Vice President of Financial Services at H&R Block, and along with being responsible for the broad portfolio of solutions for H&R Block's customers, she and her team are also launching a new mobile banking platform later this year. So welcome, Brunson, Laura, and Crystal. Each of our panelists' organization are at different stages of maturity, with respect to the collection and use of financial health data in managing their businesses. And this is a topic that's near and dear to my daily work. Following several years of service as the Chief Program Officer of the Financial Health Network, I'm leading one of our new solutions, a platform called Attune, which is a B2B technology platform that helps organizations measure and improve financial health outcomes for their customers and employees. So in the context of today's event, our discussion is really focused around the performance pillar of financial health. And as Marissa noted at the start of the event, like with any other company initiative, like expanding a new customer segment or reducing loan charge-offs or driving employee engagement, it's important to understand the current state of an issue, to have a goal in improving it, and being able to track progress towards that goal. And even though financial health might be a new type of outcome for businesses, or it might be measured with new type of data, it follows a similar kind of playbook. And so with that context in mind, I want to dig in a little bit to the concept of performance and data and measurement in financial health with our panelists. And Laura, I'm going to start with you and ask you, what prompted you and your organization, your team, to start working on, thinking about, beginning the progress of measuring financial health? How did you begin to do it? How's that evolved?
First of all, John, thank you and the Financial Health Network for having us here today. Very excited to be here. There's a simple and there's a complicated answer to that question. The simple answer is goes back 7-ish years ago now, back to 2014, 2015, when our then CEO Ajay Banga made a commitment to the World Bank very publicly and brought it back to the company. He committed us to reach 500 million people around the globe by 2020 and bring them into the financial mainstream by providing them access to financial products and services to bring them out of the cash-based, unbanked base of the pyramid. Clearly, we then immediately had to figure out how to, A, how to do it, and B, how to measure it. We're very, very proud to say that we met and exceeded that goal 3 quarters early in the first quarter of last year in 2020, in the middle of global pandemic. And then we looked ahead and we realized meeting that, while it was an incredible achievement, didn't eradicate poverty, it didn't alleviate financial vulnerability. So we needed to look ahead and set a new North Star for the organization, and we doubled down and doubled our commitment to reach 1 billion people by 2025, which is now our new goal. But we also did a second thing that's very important to this question. As we measured our progress to our first 500 million goal, we committed to measure to a number. We measured access through MasterCard data, through reported issuer data that our financial institutions are required to report in our systems. We measured new product issuance delivered into the hands of a cardholder, right? So we measured a number. We realized at the end of that that the number wasn't enough. We actually had to understand the usage of those programs. Were people using them? Were they just cashing out the funds loaded onto them and putting them back in their sock drawer until the next time there were funds around? And until we could understand usage, we couldn't understand the level of social impact that we were having around the globe in any communities and where the greater opportunities still lied. So finding the data, measuring the data, understanding the data, realizing which data sources we needed to be able to track those things has really taken my team the better part of the last number of years. We are continuously perfecting it, I look forward to the tools that you have as well for that.
Awesome. Well, we'll put a pin in that. We're going to come back to that. Now, Brunson, you're going to be at 1 billion users someday here soon, but I just give you a little bit of trouble. You're obviously coming at it from a different position, but you've made a similar kind of commitment at your organization. Like, what prompted you to think about financial health measurement as a component of the way that you're building your platform?
Certainly, John, certainly. I was actually just on the phone with my founder earlier, and we're as excited as you are about the 1 billion users that we'll be working with here in the near future. So we have a lot to look forward to. But, I would start by saying, by way of background, Per Capita is a financial wellness company at its core. We are in stealth mode, so we are just about a little over a year old. And so we're incredibly excited about being here and incredibly excited to participate in the panel. My role as partner is to sort of lead how we come to understand and serve our communities of interest, namely marginalized folks, specifically low and middle income employees. And so our core focus is on financial wellness and how we think about that, how we measure that, how we articulate that, how we hold ourselves accountable to achieving that is really what's important to us. But when we started this journey about, just over a year ago in sort of February 2020, we realized that you don't need a ton of proprietary research to understand that income inequality is one of the most pressing issues facing America, right? And sort of after spending over a year in a pandemic, a global pandemic, that has only become more and more clear. Right, so we began by asking the question, what are sources of financial harm for folks? What's getting in the way of folks' financial wellness? So we looked at the credit card space. We looked at the student loan space, right? We wanted to understand sort of the mechanics behind these industries so that we could come up with a holistic approach that would hopefully increase folks' financial wellness. But our goal now is to figure out what we can do as a combination of academics and bankers and legal professionals in order to address some of these systems of harm, in order to create a new system, a system that supports folks along their journeys towards financial wellness.
That's great. I appreciate that. Crystal, I'm going to ask you to touch on this too, but maybe in a slightly different way. You have a mix of very mature product sets in your portfolio, and then this new one that you're launching as well. So given all of the priorities that you have to manage with sort of installed existing legacy product bases and the sort of emerging challenges of building new products, how do you think about prioritizing the resources, and what pushed you and your team to make this commitment around financial health measurement?
Yeah, first I'll say I found myself continuing to nod as my peers here were talking and saying things like, wow, and then forgetting I was on camera. So I'm assuming we can't see everyone else's faces, but I'm sure everyone else is feeling that way. You just have really said some remarkable things. So to my panelists, just incredible work you guys are doing. But yeah, John, to answer your question, it takes people and dollars, sure, and it has the potential to really compete with other needs of our organization. Thankfully, we quickly realized that it had to be aligned at all levels. I think Reba said earlier, all the way up to the board. And so we needed alignment all the way. And we don't always refer to it as financial health, but the concept and spirit of it is woven into everything that we do. And we saw real alignment when we really embraced it as an organization. And we started with redefining our company's purpose. And you hear it in the language. It's now providing help and inspiring confidence in our clients and communities everywhere. And that's this really inspirational purpose for us. But then everything we do aligns to that. It's accounted for in our 5-year financial goals and our strategic imperatives. For example, the financial products imperative that my team owns is to develop new products and experiences, and this is the wonderful part, that create confidence and ease financial burden. And then all of our projects are prioritized against that. Only the things that align to our purpose and contribute to our ambitions and deliver on that promise are the ones that get funded. And then recently, we restructured the company and dedicated resources to align with this strategy. So a very holistic approach, including the culture. We have a culture that's very committed to belonging and inclusion, which is especially important as we've learned from FHN, that there are disparities in financial health across race and income and gender. And so as you can imagine, change like that takes time. It takes everyone's buy-in, but it also takes real commitment.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Crystal. I'm going to put this to each of the three of you. As you think about your ongoing journey around financial health measurement and the data that you're acquiring and using to support that, how do you, as organizations, as teams, as products, how do you expect to derive value from that? And what are maybe some of the early proof points that you're looking to for that? Laura, you got a pretty strong top-down mandate and a problem to solve. But how do you all expect to gather value, deliver value with this sort of assessment methodology?
So let me use some real examples that we've only just cracked the nut on, literally almost this past week, but we don't have to tell anybody that. So I mentioned earlier that in our first goal, we committed to measuring access. We committed to delivering against a number. Wonderful. We met that number. And as we're going forward, we realized if we don't understand more of the programs that we put to market and what they're doing, then we really don't understand enough about what more we need to do. What do we need to change? What do we need to do differently? What do we need to stop doing? So we set about to actually measure usage. In order to measure usage, we have to be able to have a view into the actual individual portfolios that we're delivering in each market. Are they social benefits disbursement? Are they payroll for migrant workers? Are they pension plans for the elderly? You know, what in fact are they? Are they transit programs that are enabling the unbanked to stop using cash and get into a financial mainstream with a digital ID? We obviously didn't have 5 years of back historical data that we could churn through and analyze, so we're building a new database going forward, right? So we have to start from scratch. We've really just cracked the nut on how to use our own data sources to do that, and what it's allowed us to do, and we're incredibly excited, I feel very geeky about this, we now can look at the actual portfolios that we have delivered at a country level, at a regional level, and at a product level to understand what's the makeup. Are they largely prepaid cards? Are they largely debit cards? What's the actual percentage of utilization at a country level and then at a region level? Are there some countries that have 12% utilization and others at 80 that, you know, averages out? How does India's COVID situation impact the overall delivery for Asia Pacific in total, right? And one of the things that we now know, right, MasterCard does business in 210 countries and territories around the globe, but we've been measuring reach in about 170 countries, right? There are some countries that are marginally so small. There are some countries that are sanction driven, we can't do business in, right? So we don't measure from every country. But what we now realize as the 80-20 Pareto principle that we all know, over 50% of our reach has actually come from 8 countries. And add another 70 countries, add another 7 countries, 15 of 170 countries give us 3/4 of the reach that we have had. So that allows us to look into, are we putting our resources in the right place? Are we getting that reach because those countries are resourced, either human teams on the ground or funding behind it? Or are there other locations, Indonesia, I'm just going to make one up, versus Pakistan, where we should, the opportunity is massive, the percentage of underbanked or unbanked in that country is significant. Maybe regulation kept us out, you know, maybe nationalism kept us out, but it allows us now to actually look to see strategically, are there new opportunities to prioritize? Should we be working more closely with telcos? Because the proliferation of mobile handsets allows us access into customer bases, right? So having that data, having that lens into what we've already done is immeasurably important to us.
I really appreciate that. And, you know, you're obviously dealing with a global set of challenges, problems, and opportunities, but those sort of same kinds of models we can bring back to our own markets that each of us are working on and think about the differences that exist between the micro markets that we're serving. Brenson, I'm going to come to you in a second, but Crystal, I'd love to have your take on that. How is it, you know, maybe expanding on the comments you made already about the sort of strategic commitment that you've made around financial health. How do you expect the organization to derive value from the investment that you've made in this area?
Yeah, I would say tying that strategy and the spirit of financial health to business growth. The example I'll give is it's really easy to look at things like savings accounts and free credit scores and free overdraft and only see the expense that it drives. But when you have a customer who feels like their financial institution is committed to their financial health, they're likely to be more satisfied, and they're more likely to recommend and more likely to retain and more likely to purchase or engage with other products. And you just can't argue with that. So by measuring financial health, we can now draw that connection where we can take those value-added features and really see how it's driving business growth.
Is it right to interpret what you're saying? You think financial health movement could be a leading indicator to other kinds of business KPIs that the company already has confidence in?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly see that in your MAP assessment and your maturity assessment, and then that's one of the things that we're looking for, and it becomes that leading indicator for us, but you have to really be committed to it because the proof isn't always in the numbers in the beginning, especially as you're building out a new product like we are. we have to really make that big assumption that we believe this is going to tie to business growth, and we do.
Great. Well, Brunson, one of the reasons we wanted to have you in this conversation is because financial health measurement and action around financial health data is not the domain of large companies exclusively. Like, it can work in small and mid-sized firms, even ones that are emerging. And so, I think I'd like to have your answer to the same questions. How is it that you expect this to guide the way you develop and build products, the way that you provide value to the customers that you have? Where are you thinking about the value from your investment in financial health?
Absolutely, John. I mean, I think this question about the value of measurement is certainly not one where the answer is unequivocally positive or unequivocally negative. We at Per Capita, we firmly believe that measurement can be a double-edged sword, right? It offers concrete metrics by which to evaluate success, but in the same way, however, it reduces success to only include specific metrics, the efficacy of which, as my peers have sort of indicated, may be unclear or misleading or poorly founded or not exactly in the spirit of what we were after in the first place. And so it's important to acknowledge that up front with measurement. When I think about how we think about the value that will be derived from measurement as regards our clients and our users, we think about sort of the emotional experience of interacting with us versus interacting with a typical banking institution. The typical banking approach to serve a low-income family means telling them no or charging them excess fees, or in some cases denying them access to necessary tools to participate in the modern economy. Our approach, by contrast, is to find ways to be more flexible, different metrics that importantly create trust between that low-income family and Per Capita. The question then being, how can we rely on those metrics to turn those no's into yeses and provide greater access to the tools that support people's real needs?
I appreciate that. Thank you. Laura, something you had said before, you built these, but it sounded like essentially proprietary methods to assess reach and essentially usage. How are you starting to think about the impact of that usage? And I know you've looked at financial health measurement as a strategy, but how important is that to have maybe confidence in the impact of that usage? I'm tying this together with Brunson's comments about, if you measure something, like, you optimize for that thing.
Yeah, so John, it's a great question. It's a really important one, and it's one that we've spent a lot of time on. So, two important factors from a MasterCard perspective. The access and the usage are two things that we can measure with our own data, right? We see the transactions, we know the portfolios, we get reporting from our issuers. We can do those. It took some time to build the methodology and build the models, but we can do that with our own data. Social impact, we cannot do with a MasterCard lens at all. We need to determine the KPIs. We need to determine what does social impact mean, right? Have we enabled the community to pay their school fees and raise the level of education of their daughters? Have we enabled people to get vaccinated? Have we enabled people to keep the electricity on at night, or get credit for their businesses? We need external sources of measurement of those elements that we determine are what means impact for us. How has financial health led to actually an improvement in somebody's lives? So first, we have to determine what the KPIs are. Second, we have to determine who is a globally recognized, reliable source of that data. Third, is that data source something that is refreshed with regularity, right? Yeah. What happened pre-COVID versus post-COVID is a completely different lens, as you well know from Measuring America. And then we have to bring it all together. We have to strike relationships with the data providers. We have to build it into a model. We have to marry it back to our data. We have to make it auditable, and all of those things that we all spend the behind-the-scenes time on. But it's anything but easy. And, it's when you're not using your own data and you have to partner with other sources, right? The level of scrutiny that we must go through, the due diligence to really understand that is significant.
Awesome. I appreciate that. I'm going to pull in one question. We're going to have to go pretty quick with this, but I want to pull in a question from the audience. Crystal, I might start with you on this. I'm wondering if you have approached this in terms of leading and lagging indicators, essentially how you would determine that a leading indicator ties to a lagging indicator? Like how rigorous would that kind of process be? How long would that take you? What sort of approach would you take to it?
Yeah, well, John, you know this. We've embraced the Financial Health Network's framework on financial health. And so we're really focusing our product on the financially vulnerable and coping. And we'll work to really quantify where they are. And then we'll evaluate all of our activities against that. Is the insight working? Are we starting to see improvements in credit scores? Are we seeing someone spend less than they make? Are we seeing savings with a plan? All of those things that we know are real indicators that someone is what I call moving up the continuum of financial health. And we'll continue quantifying that for them, even in some cases real time assessing where they are, and then looking at our business metrics to make sure that they're aligning to that too.
John, can I just jump in on top of Crystal for
I was
1
hoping
second?
you would.
I don't want to take time, but
would.
she just called attention to a really important thing for me personally, and which is where the financial health check becomes so important. MasterCard does not own the customer relationship ever. Our customers own the customer relationship. So we can't assess the health of an individual customer. We have to turn to our customers and ask for their assessment of the health of their portfolio, right? So exactly what Crystal has just described is that data that we need to pull out from all of our various issuing partners around the globe to actually understand the level of health that our portfolio holders have. So I just wanted to make that connection because it was really important and well said. Thank you, Crystal.
I appreciate that. Brunson, Laura, Crystal, thanks for being here. Thank you for your commitment to this work, both within your own organizations and with the community of all of us that are around you trying to help you. So appreciate your leadership. Stick with it, and we wish you the best of luck in your journey. As I noted in the introduction, the team here at Financial and Health Network has built a technology platform to help try to make all of this a little bit easier, a bit more tangible, a bit more actionable as you get started. And the product is called Attune, and we've put together a short video to help share a little bit more about this. So again, thank you, Brunson, Crystal, Laura. Really appreciate having you here today. At Attune, we believe in a world where all people can be financially healthy, and we know that financial well-being is a value driver for businesses and organizations. Therefore, our mission is to make financial health a cornerstone of your company's success. We provide you with the tools to turn customer and employee financial health needs into new or improved products, services, messaging, and benefits. Developed by a world-class advisory council and backed by years of research from the Financial Health Network, Attune is a digital insights platform that helps you optimize for financial health through data measurement and analytics. Here's how it works. Attune's proprietary financial health quizzes help you capture how your customers or employees save, spend, borrow, and plan within minutes without needing a research team. These personalized quizzes are clear, quick, and conclude with immediate action steps. Using the automated recommendations in the dashboard, you can improve or develop new products, services, messaging, or benefits for your customers and employees and track their progress over time. You can personalize solutions for individuals and demographic groups, giving you ultimate flexibility to address the needs of your stakeholders. Track the financial health of your customers and employees as they adopt the programs and services that you have created. See the return on your investment grow as the financial well-being of your stakeholders increases. At Attune, data safety comes first. We invested in security and compliance from day one, with dedicated security protocols and continuous monitoring that go beyond industry standards to keep your customers' data safe, private, and protected. Our scalable platform can be used both as a standalone solution or integrated seamlessly with your digital platform. Financial health is more important than ever to both your organization and to our society. That's why financial institutions and employers across the country trust Attune to help them improve the financial health for those they serve. To get started, visit attune.co and complete a customer application today.
It is so exciting to see such a powerful measurement tool available in the market and to hear from such a diverse group of organizations using data to inform their strategy and improve financial health. Thank you, John, Laura, Brunson, and Crystal for joining us today. If you are interested in learning more about Attune, you can check out their website, which is linked in the chat. And remember, if you have questions for our panelists or the Financial Health Network, please use the chat feature on your right. We are staying grounded in data for our next session, Solutions, as we get insights from J.D. Power's newest study, the Financial Health and Advice Program, which covers what consumers want and need from their financial institution. Solutions are what improve financial health. These are the products, programs, employee benefits that help people spend, save, borrow, and plan in ways that allow them to be resilient in the face of challenges and create their future. So while the previous three pillars of the FinHealth map, vision, infrastructure, and performance, focus on a company's internal processes, the final pillar, solutions, is about translating that work into the successful delivery to customers, employees, and communities. There's no one-size-fits-all answer here. The solutions that companies offer are and should be as unique as the people they serve. But knowing what works and what to invest in can be challenging. Should you offer a budgeting tool or a small dollar credit product? What about early wage access? If you joined us earlier this month for our solutions session of Emerge Financial Health, you heard some specific examples of solutions that Opportune and Bank of America are offering. Coming up next, we'll take a broader look at what practices banks have in place today that are working and perhaps not working to support consumers. Please welcome Jennifer Lang, TD's Vice President of Customer Experience, Insights, and Innovation, and Paul McAdam, Senior Director of Banking and Payments at J.D. Power. We'll hear from them in just a moment.
Welcome, and thanks for joining this session. I'm Jennifer Lang, VP of Customer Experience, Trends, Consumer Insights at TD Bank, and I'll be facilitating our conversation. Today, we've got an exciting fireside chat with Paul Adams, Senior Director at J.D. Power, on the results from their new financial health and advice study, which is actually being released this week. And so it's literally hot off the press, and it is being released in both Canada and the US. And so today we'll talk with Paul about the results from the study for about 15 minutes, and then we'll have a bit of time for Q&A at the end. A little bit of context as we jump into this session. I think that we've all seen and read about the impact that the pandemic has had and the impact that's been disproportionate to specific groups and communities, and how the pandemic has amplified and widened existing inequities. And so as we shift our focus on our collective economic recovery, we can simply not succeed or thrive if large parts of our population continue to struggle financially. And the effects of financial insecurity go so far beyond finances to health outcomes, social and community cohesion, and so much more. And so our discussion today will focus on what J.D. Power's new study is telling us about the state of financial health in both the U.S. and Canada, what drives satisfaction with one's own financial situation, and ultimately what financial institutions can do to improve financial health outcomes for consumers and customers. And so with that, let's jump right into the conversation. Firstly, Paul, thank you so much for joining us today. We're thrilled to have you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Happy to be here.
The J.D. Power Financial Health and Advice Study is literally just being released in both Canada and the U.S. So why don't we start with a little bit of the basics? Can you tell us a bit about what does this study measure, and really what was the impetus for launching this study?
Sure. Well, the impetus is we do measure the voice of the customer. We work with companies around the globe, and we bring this information to them so they can become tactically better at a range of things. Answering the phone, branch service, app performance, all of these sort of tactical things, but raising it up a level, we want to help our clients do a better job not only of serving customers, but at attracting more of them and expanding relationships. We want customers to have good relationships with their banks, because we look at this from the customer side as well. I mean, we view ourselves as representing the voice of the customer and kind of being the voice of the customer when we're meeting with our clients. So this particular topic is a win-win, because it's just good for both the customer and the financial institution, because we absolutely see and we absolutely believe that providing advice and providing guidance around helping consumers improve their financial literacy and their financial wellness are absolutely winning strategies, and we firmly believe, and we think people will see this in the study results, there are banks that are differentiating, there are banks that are ahead of the market. And so we want to measure this to understand what's happening so that all boats can rise and financial institutions can do a better job for their customers. Now, what we've done specifically is we have went at this from a very retail mass market standpoint. We're focusing on the retail bank and the credit card provider. I mean, these are, for many consumers, these are the two primary financial institutions they deal with. So we're going deep into those relationships to find out what customers think about the financial health support they're receiving, and also information to help customers improve their literacy, so that we can understand and quantify what matters. I mean, it all kind of matters, but what matters most in terms of improving satisfaction and advocacy, and really empowering customers to do better for themselves. So we're measuring this in U.S. and Canada, looking at the retail banking and credit card sides of the relationships, and we're doing it in kind of a big annual syndicated study along with a monthly tracker. So we're in the field every month gathering information and feeding it back to clients in these two countries.
Nice. So what would you say are some of the high-level findings that you would share from both markets, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, I think we see, I mentioned it before, folks, I think everybody believes, rightfully so, that these things matter. We're quantifying it, and we're quantifying this by specific types of advice and guidance. So we are seeing that financially healthy habits absolutely go hand in hand with customers feeling empowered to improve their financial situations. And some of these are pretty broadly used, like direct deposit, and things like keeping a budget and tracking expenses and monitoring one's credit score, or setting up a savings plan, automatic, right? So that it happens, by itself. We know for certain that these financially healthy habits help customers feel more empowered, and it does these financially healthy habits correlate very strongly with financial health of customers. So we know that, but we also see direct evidence of certain types of services that are being provided by financial institutions that, again, move the needle more than others. Things like helping me I mentioned this earlier, helping me establish a budget, offering me money management education, helping me put limits on my spending so that I don't overspend, and using these insights to provide me guidance on how to spend better and save better. So we've really quantified the satisfaction impacts that can be gained overall through these types of actions, as well as by customer segment, because we see for the healthy customer versus the vulnerable, they do have differing levels of impact.
I think the study highlights there's 6 really financial healthy habits that consumers can do that have that strong correlation. And so we know very tangibly now, quantitatively, that these actually matter. If we could get customers to do these behaviors, we know it will help the outcomes. There was a stat in the study that actually talked about the fact that consumers were a little bit split as to whether or not FIs had an obligation to help them manage their personal financial situation. I was surprised by this, and so they were a bit split. Some said, yes, there's an obligation. Others said, no. What were your thoughts on that finding, and what do you think's behind that?
So to be honest, we were just curious with this particular question, because we wondered, well, how many customers out there. Yeah, we can track how many customers use these services, but how many customers out there really feel that this should be part of the bank's value proposition? And you know what? It's only a third. It's not that high. And the way it broke out was pretty interesting, because about a third of customers said that they feel their financial institution does have an obligation to help them with these things. Then a third were in the middle, kind of indifferent or neutral. And then a third said, no, got it. I'll do it on my own. Don't need them. We're okay. What was really interesting, though, is the customers who felt this higher level of obligation did have certain characteristics. So they were, statistically, with a third and a third and a third, there's a lot of customers everywhere. But statistically, this group that felt the bank had an obligation, they were younger, they tended to be more male, they tended to have higher incomes. From an ethnicity standpoint, they tended to be Black, Hispanic, or Asian rather than Caucasian. They tended to be more urban. They tended to live urban rather than in rural areas. So, there are some patterns that suggest that this group of customers who feel that their banks are obligated to help with these services, they really are the more sophisticated consumers. These customers who, when we looked at it more deeply, these customers who felt their financial institution was obligated, strong word, were also the most engaged, and they used the most services. So they feel the financial institution is obligated, and with their behaviors, I think we can all reach the conclusion that they really want these services, and if they're not getting them, it's not a good thing, or if they're taken away or scaled back in some way, that would be a real negative for these folks.
And so it was such an interesting finding for me as well as I reflected. And based on what you've just said, it's folks who maybe have already taken advantage of some of those services. They come to expect it, and they are more engaged because they understand that there is a benefit to them. But there's a whole other portion of the populations that either don't understand that there is a benefit, perhaps lack trust that we have their best interest at heart, which I think is something that we can change that. And so there's probably a few factors on why maybe 2/3 aren't quite sure if the banks are obligated to help them.
Yeah, no, you're right. And the third, feel that the bank is obligated matches pretty closely with the percentage of customers who say they're highly interested in obtaining this type of help or guidance from their bank. It's less than a third of them who say they're highly interested. So it just tells us once again that there is a lot of white space here, because there is a nearly a majority of consumers are sort of in that middle space of indifference, and depending upon the need, depending upon how it's presented, they can be they can be brought over, and we can cultivate interest in these services, is what the data is telling us as well.
Absolutely. And how do we grow that belief that it's a partnership that the financial institutions can partner with them to help them get to better outcomes, I think is the challenge that we should all take on, without a doubt. So let's talk about that. In the study, you talk about specific actions that FIs can take to help improve and support customer financial health. Can you talk to us about what some of those actions were?
Sure. And just to back up on the question a moment, it was interesting. A year plus, we did a bunch of focus groups. When you could still do in-person focus groups, we did some early on in 2020 as we were shaping this study. And it was so interesting because when we asked people, well, what do you think about your bank and this idea of them helping you improve your wellness, improve your financial health? And you know what the very first thing we generally heard? Tell me how to avoid fees, right? And so at a really, there is no one-size-fits-all solution. This has to be focused on a customer segment level, because what will work for the vulnerable customer, it's a different set of things for these customers who feel financially healthy, and I think everybody knows this. But for those vulnerable customers, it's back to the help me set up a budget, help me understand how to avoid fees, whereas I think we could all imagine for the wealthier customers, they're looking for retirement and investment-oriented advice. But what's also interesting? They're also looking for those same things. Help me budget. Help me figure out how to better kind of manage my expenses and know when to spend and when I should hold off. But you know what? They're in a different place. So for them, it's more about, I'm going to pay down debt, or I'm going to accumulate some savings. I'm going to do. Whereas the other side of the population is more about, oh my gosh, the rent is due, and it's a whole, But another, since I have the floor for just another minute before the next question, something that banks in the U.S. in particular need to focus on, like now, is this child tax credit. It's coming out soon, like this summer, as part of the American Rescue Act. It's estimated that 36 million American households are going to receive these. Peter Tufano, an expert we've been working with on this topic, estimates that there is going to be cumulatively, not all at once, but cumulatively, $115 billion coming into customers' accounts through this pandemic relief program. And customers have questions. Not everybody knows about this stuff. And the IRS just put up a portal where customers can go to find out their eligibility and all that. I looked at it. Looks like something the IRS would do. But customers need to know about this. There may also be some tax implications for some people. So this is just, treat it like PPP. When we saw what we saw with the pandemic last spring and with PPP in small business banking, customer satisfaction scores surged. They absolutely shot up big time because customers saw banks responding, both in retail and small business banking. And so this is another one of those, right? There's a big thing happening impacting 36 million families in America. That's a lot. So if you're not already on this, please check it out. This is something that will help you move the needle, in the near term, without even buying our study. So there you go.
Here's a tip, and I do think you're absolutely right. How do we help people understand that it's available? How do we help them access it? But how do we make sure we don't stop there? Because there are considerations and advice they need about, you can tap into this relief. What are the considerations? What are the implications? In Canada, the same thing happened during tax time. They didn't take tax off of the relief payments. And when tax season came around, a lot of Canadians had to pay back a lot of tax. And so really there's an opportunity for advice alongside access, absolutely. And hopefully we've learned from the first round of relief payments and what we can do to better support customers.
Yep.
And so was there anything else you might highlight? So I think you talked about some of the near-term opportunities. What were some of the other things that really stood out that really banks and financial institutions really need to be thinking about in terms of how to support customers?
Yeah, so we specifically looked at digital tools. So, digital interactive tools to help with this, this topic we're speaking about. The results really, we found the same thing that we always find with digital tools. The more customers use them, the better, number one. And with this issue of advice and financial health guidance, customers who use a digital tool to get help with this issue, satisfaction, net promoter score, acting on the information that you obtained, it all just shoots up sky high. It even shoots up when customers use digital with another channel. So if they went to the branch, let's say, and talked to somebody there, and then also used a digital tool, it doesn't shoot up as much, but it goes up meaningfully. It matters. It matters so much. And it was interesting. What we found is that the digital tools that had the strongest relationship with satisfaction improvement, 3 of the 4 of them were kind of lending related. So one was tools that helped me figure out how to finance a home purchase, a remodel, those types of things. How to pay down debt or eliminate debt was another tool that is highly rated. Just generally learning about credit. How do I qualify? How does it work? How much do I think I could get? And the final one was just planning for saving for a large goal or a large purchase. Those 4. And again, this is on top of retirement and investments and a lot of other great things that also help satisfaction. But what I'm telling you is in study, these 4 were on top. The one, bad news for the payments people out there. The one that was lowest, still do it because customers like it. But digital tools that help people sort of track their billings, track their subscriptions, kind of track what's going on with transfers in payments world. Good, but the satisfaction lift was sort of on the lower end of the spectrum. And honestly, when we've looked at this in other parts of our research, it's just tougher. I guess it's just, in the mindset of consumers, they don't really think about payments, right? Payments are payments. It's supposed to happen. It's like the utility that just needs to work. And so they don't really, it just doesn't drive, services around that doesn't seem to drive stat improvement as much as, around lending or helping with wealth accumulation and things like that. So it probably makes sense.
I know we're getting close to time, if you can believe it already. And I know that we talked a lot about tools, and you've seen an explosion of tools on the market, from fintechs to FIs. It is an important component, as if you've seen in your study, but tools alone without the advice and guidance really, doesn't entirely deliver for customers. So as we think about how we, meet the needs from a tool enablement perspective, how do we make sure that's always paired with really good guidance and relevant advice will really help customers. And so I know we're running, I'm just going to check if there's any questions as we round out our conversation. Because I do think tools has been such a hot topic. We've seen so many deployed, and I think that's great because it enables consumers to understand where they're at, what they need to do, their current circumstance. And
yep.
I think
and
I
these
love
tools
that.
are, they really are important because the technology enables these services to be brought to the masses. But we do need to keep them in context, because when consumers receive advice or guidance from a person, they're more likely to act on it. So when it's received in a branch, on the phone, with a licensed rep, certainly their acting on the advice is higher than if they're receiving the information through a digital tool. But as we've been, we're in a multi-channel world. These things fit together. So we need to offer everything. It's kind of the way the industry always seems to shake out, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I know, unfortunately, we're already at time. And so we could talk about this topic all day long. I think there's so much depth within this study and so much valuable insight. But I will say to everyone, thank you so much for attending this session and spending a bit of time with us to discuss this topic. We hope that you've taken away some valuable insights and ideas on how you can create solutions and tools at your respective organizations to help advance financial health of your consumers and customers. So thank you again. Thank you, Paul, so much much for sharing a bit of the insights. Sure, there's lots of questions on what else is in this study, and I'm sure we'll start to see it as the public releases go out, but thanks for sharing some of the headlines with us today.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you so much, Jen and Paul. It's energizing to see organizations such as JD Power take on the cause of financial health. There are such rich consumer insights from the study. I think Paul's insight about needing to take a segment-based approach is really key. Tools for managing expenses and understanding and managing credit are really important. But exactly the form that they take needs to be connected to who that consumer is. If you're interested in hearing more about what works to impact financial health, you could check out JD Power's site, as well as we encourage you to check out the Financial Health Network's Leaders Lab, a program that supports our members in developing and testing innovations to improve financial health. You can also use the chat feature, and our staff will help connect you with our panelists, the Leaders Lab, and other resources. As we close out our time together today, I am joined by my colleague, John Thompson, president of Attune, our measurement platform. Welcome back, John.
Thank you.
Today has rang loud and clear to me that the journey to financial health for all is not one that any of us is on alone. We developed our tool, the FinHealth Map, with the goal of making the path to financial health impact more clear and actionable. And we heard a growing number of tools available to support financial institutions as they embark on this journey. Attune's platform for financial health measurement is a powerful example of that. John, what resonated with you today?
There's a lot in these conversations. I think maybe to connect it back to the, the point you just made, we saw examples today of organizations approaching their own financial health work in completely different manners. Some which, came from a bottoms-up structure, some which emerged out of CSR, others that were derived in response to a CEO mandate, still others that emerge out of a desire for competitive differentiation when, in many cases, financial institutions are sort of swimming in this sea of sameness, and financial health may be such a competitive differentiator. So I think that's one. Another, that I noted was even in a large organization like U.S. Bank, taking an agile approach is something that's proven valuable as a way both to get started and develop confidence internally about both the approach, the value, the impact. And I connect that to the infrastructure conversation where we heard some organizations talk about the journeys they've been on around centralizing leadership or ownership in some cases of financial health versus distributing ownership across different departments, building teams. And there's different kinds of approaches that may be necessary in different organizations at different times. And that's a lot of what we see in the map, of course. And I think then, maybe the last takeaway, I think really hearing an organization like JD Power start to talk about the connection of financial health and financial health measurement to things that industry relies on around satisfaction and customer experience and customer engagement really speak to the mainstream potential and power of financial health outcomes as part of the way financial institutions, employers, and other organizations run their business.
I couldn't agree more, John. Thank you so much for joining me today, and all of you for tuning in. As we traveled through the FinHealth Map, we laid out a lot of work ahead for financial institutions, building a vision, deploying infrastructure, managing performance, and delivering solutions. I hope you found your time with us inspiring and informative as we got tactical on how to transform your organization for financial health impact. And as we wrap for today, we'd love to hear your feedback on what you thought today's sessions went well and what you thought was most insightful. We stand ready at the Financial Health Network to support you on this journey. If you did not connect with us already via chat today, please find us on our website, send us a note. We would love to connect.